If we caught you on any of the screens, you can't go to level 1 for the deadlift with anybody, or you yourself can't do it. You owe us some corrections. So we're going to take you through some corrective strategies. Now, if you don't have the crocodile breath, practice it. It will get better. Anything you do for thoracic spine mobility, rib cage mobility, anything you do in yoga with extension and rotation would all benefit this. But basically practice. Train the diaphragm, work the diaphragm. Want to go for about 5 minutes. If you can't do it for 5 minutes, work up to that. So that's your correction if breath is the problem. If the active straight leg raise is the problem, either a bilateral symmetrical limitation or a unilateral asymmetrical limitation is present, I'm going to work you through just a little drill we did in the book to get some symmetry there. Now, the thing I want you to understand is with the push-up, the bridge, the toe touch, the active straight leg raise, don't think muscles, think movement. You captured a pattern. When I bridged up and one of my hips dropped, you could say, oh, I think that's the glute medius. Oh, she thinks it's the oblique. She thinks your transverse didn't come on. He thinks your hip flexor's overactive. You're all probably right. So the point is the brain doesn't recognize individual muscle activity. Training it that way will not change movement. We say it all the time. Does working on the glute medius help the squat, or does working on the squat help the glute medius? Go for the movement. The muscles will take care of themselves. They have a sequence they like, and you have no idea what it is. So when you capture something on these screens, you have captured a pattern. That's it. If you try to digress any more than that, you're probably going to be wrong more often than not, because the minute you put a microscope on the body, you miss the other 99.9% of what's going on. So we're just going to capture a pattern. We're going to do some simple corrections and try to clean it up. If leg raise gets better, toe touch gets symmetrical, at least you have static stability on the bridge or push-up, then you can move on to the other stuff we're going to show you. But let's make the assumption right now that Brett's left active straight leg raise was severely limited. Show us a good one on the right, Brett. All right, we'll take that and show us a bad one on the left. I need this to be higher or this to be lower. Either way, I want symmetry, but I'd like to see them equalize before we do that. So tuck both knees to chest and bring both legs back up. And notice, once you lift both legs, you can lift both legs higher than the one. This one will have a little extra tension on it. What I'm going to do is basically step to the side so he can lower this leg. So Brett, what I'm going to have you do is lower this leg all the way down, and I'm going to help hold this leg up and lift back up and back down. And work through that. Now, he doesn't really get a stretch on this leg till that leg gets down, but he's learning to get this leg into a better position, first statically, and then second dynamically. Point the toe, point this toe, hold it in place, let it down, bring it back up. Don't need a lot of reps. I'm breaking a pattern. Lay them back down. I'm going to continually recheck this. Show me that left leg now. And it comes on up. Perfect. That's basically the way to do this. Let's say both legs are limited. Do the same thing on each side. They can practice it on a wall at home. You can stand there and hold it for them if you want. But using your breath, using your stabilization, using some abdominal bracing right there will probably help. We also will have you maybe pull down into a band or press down into a Bosu or a ball. Anything to engage a little more core stability is fine, but eventually we want to take that away from you because you should engage core stability naturally, not with training wheels. Come on, stand up. Let's look at that toe touch. Stand here and show me the limited toe touch, client, and there we go. First thing, what's tight, what's weak, what's not going on? Nothing. The toe touch pattern is out. That's what's on. Guess where the problem is? Right here. It's a central nervous system problem. If it was anything more than that, I could not bring somebody up on stage and change it in a short amount of time. Now, let's say that Brett is about 8 inches off of his toes. I need to break the pattern of ground dependence. Now, one of the things it is, when Brett goes to touch his toes, he actually starts firing his plantar flexors. As he fires his plantar flexors, he has a weight shift this way, and he throws himself off balance and realizes if I go any deeper, I'll fall. Therefore, I will fire my hamstrings to keep myself from going deeper. And then he looks up at me and says, I've got tight hamstrings. No, you don't. You were using them not to fall because a balance reaction was out. So he's going to do about 6 reps in a toe touch progression. And I've got a lot of little rules I do here. Number 1, I have to have perfect foot position. That means the feet are touching with the toes up on the board. Now, what this does is keeps Brett from pronating. If your feet are together and then I say, bend your knees, split them apart, and grab that ball, the one thing you don't do is hyperextend the knees. He can't take his knees all the way out. Keep a subtle bend right there in the knee. Avoid that hyperextension. Now, there's no way he can roll his arch inward. If he takes his feet apart and squeezes, the arches roll naturally. But as long as the feet are together and the knees are apart, you can't pronate, and a better foot position yields better glute and ab contractions, better core stability. Now, here are your instructions. I want you to bend forward and touch your toes. Go as far as you comfortably can, and when your first barriers arise and you don't feel like you can go anymore, crush the ball. Don't keep a straight knee. Keep a bent knee while crushing the ball. That unlocks the hip and makes you use your muscles, not your tightness. You may gain an inch or two. You may get all the way to your toes. If you don't get to your toes, bend your knees and cheat the rest of the way, and you must touch your toes every time. So, come on down. First barrier, now he's going to engage and squeeze. He's squeezing with his adductors, and the adductors are on the same circuit as the flexors right here. And the adductors and abs work together. Come on back up. As they work together, we get reciprocal inhibition of the extensors of the back and the glutes, the extensors of the hip. Now, we're breaking the pattern of this extension dominant toe touch. We're also changing his foot position. He's biasing and getting a gastrocsoleus stretch, but his inner ear says, whoa, we're standing uphill. We cannot draw stability from the ground. We have to have equilibrium at our pelvis, our lumbopelvic girdle. We need to get that rhythm back and quit depending on the foot position for balance and stability. We can depend on the core, the gyroscope of the body. So as Brett is rehearsing this pattern, he's going deeper and deeper every time. And yes, we're rounding out the back, and that's okay because the back's not loaded. We've got to get the spine and legs working together to realize that an unloaded pattern should be supple and mobile. We can then take this mobility, throw stability on it, and walk out with a much better core and protected spine. Now, we're not finished yet. Brett's basically got to step across the board, put his feet together in the exact same position, abduct his knees without changing his foot position, re-engage the ball squeeze, do not go into knee extension, and now he's got to do a toe touch, but something just happened. Brett's legs got longer because now he's 2 inches further off the floor than he was a minute ago. And he's going to have a different bias. Now he's standing downhill, equilibrium is affected again, can't depend on the ground again. I've got to engage and squeeze to get that extra bit, and then whatever I can't get from there, I need to bend my knees and get. So each time, bend your knees as much as you have to, but no more than you need to. Engage and squeeze the ball, activating that anterior complex, shuts down any unnecessary activity of the posterior complex. So we've got a couple things going on here. We are getting muscle stretching. We're getting equilibrium. We're getting proprioception, body awareness. We're getting activation of the core muscles with the ball squeeze. And at the very end, go ahead and cheat. Nobody ever said you had to touch your toes on a hyperextended knee. It's more important to break the pattern. Now, usually doing 10 of these on each side of the board will restore someone's toe touch. And if it doesn't, give it about 3 sessions or about a week. Here's the thing that I usually tell people who were limited to begin with. If you haven't been able to touch your toes, and if this dramatically affects your toe touch, you have absolutely no reason not to do this every day before you work out, before you leave the house, or before you go to bed to reinforce that pattern. So, if you've got the asymmetry, meaning your toe touch was a problem only on one side, we're going to work on the hip flexor and we're going to work on the leg drop for the active straight leg raise. That should fix it. That and a simple hip flexor stretch, doing some mobility just on the one side. Once you're at least symmetrical, you may still not be able to touch your toes. This breaks through that big central nervous system pattern and gets you going, readies your body for what we're going to show you next.
Now that we've